بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأكمل التسليم على سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ونور أبصارنا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وسلم الصادق الوعد الأمين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ورضي اللهم عن الصحابة والتابعين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله واجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's peace and blessings be with you all. Jazakallahu khairan once again for joining us for this series to prepare ourselves for the blessed month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. This is our third year doing this, and we have received many good feedback from these programs, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows it to be beneficial for us and for us to take this as a means to prepare for the great month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, today I'm very honored and pleased to be here with someone who is very close to me, someone I've benefited tremendously from. That is our dear Dr. Marwa Assar. Alhamdulillah, maybe some of you guys may be familiar with her work, but just to introduce her formally, Dr. Marwa is a psychologist and a psycho-spiritual teacher who specializes in providing counseling as well as a psycho-spiritual education that is rooted in the Islamic teachings and approached through an Islamic psychological lens. Alongside her constant pursuit of Islamic studies, Dr. Marwa has studied psychology intensively for 10 years. SubhanAllah, mashallah. In addition to completing both her bachelor's and master's degree in psychology, she has also completed her doctorate of psychology at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Her doctoral research focus was on Islam and psychology, as she completed a research study titled An Islamic Psychological Approach to Psychotherapy, and that was in 2017, highlighting what Islamic teachings have to offer to the world of psychological wellness and psychotherapy for Muslim clients. Through her work as both a psychologist and a teacher, she is dedicated to empowering others on a spiritual, mental, and emotional level, and has spent over a decade intensively exploring and merging traditional Islamic teachings with psychology to help others cultivate greater psychological health, navigate their human experience beautifully, and tackle the spiritual and psychological barriers that come between them and experiencing healthy, fulfilling relationship with God themselves and others. In addition to her studies, Dr. Marwa training has as a psychologist involved working in a diverse setting with inpatient substance abuse treatment facility to schools, private practice, and mental health organizations. Dr. Marwa is also the founder of Home Institute. Inshallah, later on, she'll be talking about a little bit more, whose approach to psycho-spiritual wellness, a methodology she has conceptualized through an Islamic psychological lens to help others understand their psychological and spiritual design and experience greater inner peace and alignment. Through her work at Home Institute, Dr. Marwa offers both online and physical spaces for the heart and others, where students can learn the heart-centered knowledge and tools they need to strive spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Alhamdulillah, she's also right now currently working with the Islamic Center of New York City alongside Imam Suhaib Webb, as well as Imam Khalid Latif. So we are very happy to have her here, and I'm going to introduce her. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum assalam, Saif. I'm happy to be here. Sorry, I think you got the long version of my bio. I think I meant a shorter one for you.
Alhamdulillah. No problem. I mean, mashallah, this really highlights the great work that you've been able to achieve in the last couple of years, and we're very honored to have people like you in our community that we can benefit from.
I appreciate that.
So today we're talking about a very important subject, the spiritual and psychological view of Ramadan. So Jazakallah khairan for coming.
Yeah, وياك. No.
Bismillah.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and I'm happy to be here with you all, and I hope that whatever I share with you all today is going to be just even a small means of getting our hearts ready, my heart and your heart, ready for Ramadan, inshallah. So first, I always like to start by thanking you for bringing your heart to this, and because this is something that I truly value, is the hearts that we bring into any space, and I like to point your attention to that the heart within you is the most important part that you can bring into any space, even virtual spaces like this. So the heart is the most important entity within us that is designed to really derive that connection from that connection to what we learn. It's not enough to just come with our mind and fill our mind with information and walk away and like, okay, I have more information. That's not enough, right? It's not enough. It's definitely not good when we come in to learn with our nafs or our egos, just seeking to self-importance or whatever for having that knowledge. That's also not good, right? So the most important thing that we can do is make sure that our hearts are present in the spaces that we bring it to learn and to empower ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, right? So again, thank you for bringing your heart. The topic today is a topic that it's very it's a topic I really love, and it's a topic that I've been passionate about for years, because it's really important to look at anything that we do, especially the month of Ramadan, holistically, right? And so this topic of looking at Ramadan through a psychological and spiritual view is with the hopes to get you to see that, to take a step back and look at Ramadan with this greater picture, right? With a bigger picture, to see it as something that has so much to offer you, not just on a spiritual level, but for your entire being. And how many of us really approach Ramadan like that? If any of you today with me today are going through a hard time, or you feel like you're struggling emotionally, you feel like you're just weighted by the heaviness of this dunya, of this world, of your hardships, of your struggles. For anyone who's listening today who feels like they've just been stuck, faith wise, they've been stuck spiritually, mentally, emotionally, for anyone who's been asking Allah for something and it hasn't yet been answered, for anyone who feels like they've been doing the same things to change their life, to transform themselves, and it hasn't been working. How many of us look at Ramadan as, this month is for me, and it's right at the most perfect time for me to do those things, to empower myself, not just spiritually, but also mentally and emotionally, for me to get unstuck. This is going to be my month. This is the month that I'm not going to only, inshallah, become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but this is going to be the month in which I get unstuck. It's going to be the month in which I take serious steps towards my holistic transformation. It's going to be the month where I really, derive the most, holistic benefits for myself, for my mind. It's the month where I'm going to change my mindset. It's the month where I'm going to take steps to changing, my heart, to change the way I interact with my emotions, the way I interact with other people. How many of us look at Ramadan as it is here to offer me something holistically? I'm not saying that it's going to be the month where we become perfect. Never. We never arrive at perfection. It's not going to be the month where you're going to do, change everything right away. But how many of us look at it as the month in which I can actually take drastic steps towards the holistic change that I want to make, and that's the thing. That's this month. It sets the platform for that. It sets the atmosphere for that. It sets the tone. It sets the right environment, right? It's a month in which Allah makes change easier. And this is what I want to, connect your heart a little bit more today. When I say psycho spiritual, I mean the merge of psychology and spirituality, psychological wellness and spiritual wellness, of course, rooted in an Islamic perspective. But when we want to look at how can Ramadan serve me psychologically and spiritually, and what I want to share with you is that, first of all, this month is a means to reintroducing us to who we are, right? And to the truth of who we are. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, right? Do not be like those who forgot Allah, He made them forget themselves. And so, in redirecting the heart towards God, Allah redirects us to what is good for us. In remembering Allah, we remember what is good for ourselves. And so, when Allah tells us, do not be like those who forgot Allah, then He made them forget themselves. So, there's a relationship here, right? When you forget yourself, you forget what you need to thrive. You forget what you need to empower your wellness. You forget what you need. You forget you need salah. You forget you need, to do certain things that's going to empower you. You forget you need to exercise. You forget you need all of these things in place that empower the best version of yourself that Allah is molding you to be, right? And so when we forget Allah, we forget what is good for us. And that's really a fact. That's really a truth we need to understand, that the more aligned we are with our fitrah, this innate truth we all are born with, the more that we can see clearly what is good for us, what is beneficial for us, what makes us thrive. And so when we look at Ramadan as this platform and this opportunity, this month boot camp, it's like a boot camp. It's a spiritual, it's a psycho-spiritual boot camp, I like to call it, because it really is this, reuniting with not only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but with what actually makes you thrive. And, in the beginning, and a lot of people will say this, why is it that by the end of Ramadan, we cry tears because we don't want it to end? That we feel like we're saying goodbye to something we love, someone we love so deeply, right? Because as it came, we were reintroduced to parts of ourselves that we were disconnected from. We are reconnecting to this heart that longs to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so as we start increasing in our dhikr, as we start, praying more and reconnecting with Allah and reconnecting with His words, Allah allows us to taste the sweetness, this settling, this clarity, this peace, right? And so by the end, we're like, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way I want to feel all the time. This is the kind of, settling and grounding that I want all year round, right? And then we don't want it to end, even though maybe in the beginning, many people were dreading the fasting, right? And for many people, fasting is not that easy, right? And you see this happen in people, right? Where in the beginning, it's like that discomfort of fasting. You're getting used to now reigniting this part of you, which is your spiritual part, the soul, right? And taming and depriving the parts of you that you're not meant to lead with, your nafs, and your ego, your nafs, your the part of you that seeks comfort, your lower self, right? The part of you that just wants to fulfill its desires, doesn't want to be uncomfortable. It's the pleasure seeking part of yourself. And so as you deprive that part of yourself, you're giving an opportunity for your heart and your soul to come to the lead, right? And it's in that process that we're like, this is the way it's meant to be. I'm not meant to be led by my nafs. I'm not designed to be led by, my ego. I'm not designed to be led by my physical body. I'm designed, to be a soul. And that's the thing, that the first point that I really want to connect your heart to is that Ramadan is really, and like back to that point that I was making, that it's a reintroduction to yourself, is that you realize that who you are in essence is a soul. And so there's this really important concept we all need to understand and really be deeply connected to, which is we are not, human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Your essence, my essence, who we really are at our core is souls, spiritual beings that came from elsewhere and will end up back to its home, right? That this is not its home. So your physical body is just housing it, right? And we all know this. So, and the thing is, a lot of us outside of Ramadan live as the human being part of us. The human experience is who we are. But the thing is, an experience, right, that our humanness cannot be who we are because it's temporary. You're only human for a limited amount of time, and then you return back to that soul state, right? I mean, that soul within you transcends this human experience. And so, but many of us live as if the human experience is the permanent part of us. And the soul and what our spirit needs and what our soul needs and our, it's longing to be in line with its fitra. That's something that's on the side. That's my side hustle, right? Like, I just like, this is my full-time job and being a soul is my part-time job. And the thing is that that's what leads us to a lack of alignment. And this is what many people experience outside of Ramadan. And it's that alignment, that psycho-spiritual alignment that people experience in Ramadan. That feeling of I'm actually leading from the place of who I really am, which is a soul that came from Allah and ends up returning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Rumi says this really beautifully where he says, my soul is from elsewhere and I plan on ending up there, right? So, this is something we need to always be connected to, is that, it's our soul that transcends this physical body, this human experience. And it makes things better for us mentally and emotionally when we treat our human experience for what it is, as an experience, not who we are, not the most permanent part of us. So it's our spirit is the most permanent part of us. And it's the human experience that we pass through. And in Ramadan, we're reminded so powerfully of that. And so it really is an invitation to realign ourselves. And one of the things that I teach is my approach, which is the heart over mind and ego approach. And this approach, actually, one of the key evidence that I use for this approach is Ramadan, where this approach is based on the premise that we're meant to lead from this heart within us, meaning that the heart should be the most prioritized thing within us, entity within us. It's the tool within you that's designed to connect to Allah. It's the tool within you that's designed to long for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But many of us are so led by our mind, right? Like that, everything we think takes us in a million directions. It's our lead. We think it's like, so, in my line of work, I see many people who worship their mind, right? If I think something, that means that, it's the end of it all, right? If I feel something, emotions sometimes are the lead for many people, right? That if I feel something, that's it. My emotion dictates my behavior, right? And my nafs or ego, right? If I desire something or if I'm uncomfortable, that dictates what I do, right? And so many people are led from these different entities within us. And through my approach, I teach my students that, that we're not designed to lead from that, And so one of the concepts that I teach is that, when anything other than the heart is the lead, don't walk towards Allah in all our conditions. If your mind is the lead, you're only going to walk towards Allah for as long as you comprehend Him. If your emotions are the lead, you're going to walk towards Allah, if your emotions or your nafs are the lead, you're only going to walk towards Allah for as long as you feel good, right? You feel good. Okay, I'm going to pray more. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. If I'm going to pray tahajjud, I'm going to, pray on time. If you don't feel good, you don't do it. And this is what we hear, right? People say, oh, I pray and I didn't feel it, or I didn't feel like praying, so I didn't pray. And so we're met. But when your heart is the lead, when your heart is the priority, you walk towards Allah in all your conditions, And in Ramadan, there's evidence of this, right? That when you deprive other areas within you, or you treat them the way they're meant to be treated, you give an opportunity for the heart to be the lead. And that's why we taste that alignment, is because the heart finally comes to take back its leadership, to finally get the honor it deserves within us, right? Because think about this in Ramadan. If you think, I always give this example of when people, for example, if you look at people who are blind, their hearing is very strong. And if you look at people who don't hear, you'll notice that their sight is stronger than average, right? Why is that? Because subhanAllah, there's this balance in the world, and there's this balance even in the human body, that when something is when one area in our physical being is deficient, another area steps up to make up for that deficiency. So even in our sensory system, if a person can't see, then the hearing becomes stronger to make up for that deficiency of the eye, and vice versa. So there's a system within us. It's called our psychological and spiritual system, our psycho-spiritual system, made up of our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our heart, our spirit, right, our soul. And and the thing is that if you're always feeding your nafs, your heart doesn't have any reason to come up and make up for any deficiency, because you're keeping your nafs full, you know. And if you're always just worshiping your mind, like, okay, I know something, that's enough, right? Not thinking about, well, did my heart taste the sweetness of that knowledge? Did my heart connect to that knowledge? Then you're going to just be happy. Like, you're going to be just satisfied with, okay, I have information. That's enough, right? Something I always remember from my brief time studying at Medina Institute is a powerful statement by Sheikh Ninawi, and where he said, that information only becomes knowledge when it reaches the heart, right? And so in Ramadan, you get to taste this power of really your heart getting the opportunity to come back and be the priority. Because what happens in Ramadan? First of all, you start depriving your nafs. Food is the most basic desire of the human being. Okay. And even Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he touches upon this very extensively, and he says that, that basically your desire for food is the most basic. If you can conquer that, you can conquer other things, right? And this is and it makes, it's not a coincidence that even Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the advice he gave to those who cannot get married, right, and fulfill their physical desire is what? To fast. Because if you can control your most basic desire, which is food, you are more likely to be able to control other desires. And so right away, off the bat, we are controlling our nafs. We're saying no to our nafs. We're depriving our nafs. We're making our nafs more deficient, right? We're not satisfying it. We're not giving it its full. At the same time, you're using this more wisely. You're trying to engage the mind with the knowledge and the dhikr and the reflection, and you're not making it your Lord. You're making Allah your Lord. You're directing the mind. How can I reflect to get closer to Allah? What can I read to get closer to Allah? What can I think about? The dhikr, how can I engage my mind? You're using this the way it's meant to be used, right? So you're making it, you're using it in service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your heart has no choice but to now be activated. Have you ever, for example, you remember a day in Ramadan when you're so hungry and you're just like, oh my God, I can't wait till iftar, right? And then you say, okay, you know what? Let me go read some Quran. Let me go do some dhikr. And you realize as you progress through doing that you're not as hungry. What is that? You fed a greater part of you. You fed a higher part of you, right? And so that's it right there. It's that the more we nourish our heart, our soul, the less our nafs needs to come up, but vice versa. The more you say no to your nafs, now the heart has an opportunity to come and take the lead, because it sees that position needs to be filled, and every system has to have a leader, right? We always say, even in our tradition, right, if there's 3 people, we should choose one to lead, right? And so the Ramadan itself just creates this opportunity. Sorry, one second. Ramadan itself just creates this opportunity where we can give back the heart, its position that it's meant to lead with, right? And so we experience that piece of aligning our inner world, and it's also an opportunity for us to work on caring for ourselves the way that we are meant to care for ourselves. With Ramadan, with first of all with with shaitan being locked up, like this is it. This is my boot camp. Allah's taking away something that could be something that is not could be something that is a great obstacle to our change. And he's saying he's like, I'll take care of that for you, you know? So he set the atmosphere, he set the opportunity, and he's creating this process for you to feel that alignment, to feel that reconnection to your truth, to reconnection to your fitra, to the reconnection to how you're supposed to be interacting with the human experience in this world. Yeah. And so I really just want to, encourage you all to really think about how you're going to utilize this Ramadan and maximize this opportunity, this platform, this boot camp that's being designed for you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to change. Whenever when people go to physical boot camps, right? Or there's a meal plan, right? Like they, if you go to a gym and they have a boot camp challenge or something, right? They give you okay, 6-week challenge, here's your meal plan, here are your workouts, and if you do this and this, you're going to experience transformation, right? How many of us look at Ramadan like this? The boot camp is set. The meal times, when to eat, right, is set. What you're supposed to be doing is set, right? Increasing in dhikr, increasing in reading Quran, increasing in closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The time is set. It's a month. How many of us are going to approach it the same way? That this is my opportunity to really transform. This is my opportunity to utilize, to maximize that shaitan is not here. I'm going to engage in great habits. And I want you to think about, doing small things, but root them in great intentions. This is really the power of holistic transformation. Is you don't focus on doing big things, showy things, or things that are going to be you do them once and it's a big deal and then you don't do them again. No, it's about doing small things, but rooting them, grounding them like you would ground a tree, like you would plant a tree, root it firmly in great intentions, because intentions give value to the action past the time that you do it, right? And when meaning that our intentions allow for the value of that action to transcend time and place. So for example, you do an action without any intention, you're just going through the motions. You don't really experience any value through, you don't have a connection to why you're doing it. That deprives you of value, that robs you of value. You also don't see the barakah of it long after you do it. How many people set intentions, subhanAllah, and they set such beautiful intentions that they saw the fruits of it later, not just in this dunya, but the akhirah, right? So when we set great intentions, when we are really connected to the why behind doing something, we already got something out of that action. So regardless of the outcome, we feel satisfied. We feel nourished is a better word. We feel nourished. We feel connected. And many people are just doing things and they're not connected. And that's why they're scattered mentally, emotionally, because there's this lack of connection to the things that we are doing. So one of the things that I really, encourage my students to do, especially during Ramadan, is to, focus on these small actions that you can do. We want sustainable habits. So pick 2, 3, 4, right? Even if you just want to start and say, you know what, I want to just establish this habit of reading Quran every day. I want to establish the habit of doing my morning dhikr, or I want to establish the habit of helping my mom, or, with a small action every day, or doing, good, any kind of good that you can do, even outside the acts of worship, right? But root them in great intention. Be so deeply connected to why you're doing it. Direct your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about him seeing you and him and the angels recording that action and it having value for you in a time and place beyond now, beyond this dunya. see how much sweeter you experience those actions. But Ramadan is the time to start, because if you can do it in Ramadan, you're more likely to do it outside of Ramadan, you know? And so, yeah, I really hope that, that we all utilize this Ramadan to as a means to our holistic transformation. Don't ever think any dua is too small or too big, right? Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, please align me, please empower me, please transform me spiritually, mentally, emotionally, personally. Never, you know, please, if you want to practice better self-care, Ya Allah, please help me practice better self-care, a self-care that's holistic, a self-care that allows me to thrive spiritually, mentally, emotionally, to become the person that you want me to be, Ya Allah. So include holistic du'as even in Ramadan. Ask, prioritize the akhirah, of course, and prioritize where you're, Jannah, and prioritize, the du'as that are about your relationship with Allah. But don't ever minimize also asking Allah for things that can benefit your holistic wellness, inshallah. And I'll stop here and take questions.
Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Marwa. That
Oh,
was
ayyak.
very, very important. I think, a lot of times, um, as Muslims, we focus on the physical aspect of Ramadan, right? The routine aspect of Ramadan.
Mhm.
And we get involved with that, which is very important, of course, praying and doing the
Yeah.
amal. But one thing we tend to forget and to kind of leave aside is the spiritual aspect, which really nourishes us from inside. So thank you for that. So this is a good opportunity for people to utilize Dr. Marwa. She's here to answer us and to guide us, inshallah. So there's a question, Dr. Marwa, that we had. Sister Rabia, Rabia, she's one of our students here. I usually start excited in the beginning, and the last 10 days are a beautiful boost, but I struggle in the middle. How do we prepare for the mid-Ramadan spiritual low? So anything on that?
Yeah. I think that one of the things that allows us to maximize anything is understanding the nature of the path, right? If you embark on anything, like for example, it's if you don't understand the nature of a path, if you go, for example, if you know you're going hiking, right? You're going to look up like the hiking trail. You're going to look up what shoes to wear, right? Because you understand that that's the nature of that path. You're like, I'm going to be going downhill. You're not going to wear you're not going to wear like heels or sandals, right? You're going to know, okay, I understand the nature of the path, right? And so that when you're going hiking, there's going to be some highs, there's going to be some lows. It's like something that you naturally expect, right? And I think that part of the issue with a lot of times when we embark on the spiritual path, whether in Ramadan or not, is that we have this assumption that there are no highs, and like we have assumptions that there's highs, but we almost don't expect that to be a natural part of the path. But it's like the same thing to go to a hiking trail and expect that the path is going to stay the same level the whole time, right? And so one of the things that we have to do is understand that in the spiritual path, it's not going to stay the same level. It's impossible. Okay, it's not even realistic. And it's not about perfection, but it's about authenticity. It's about being truthful with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being truthful with yourself. So when you're high, you thank Allah and you do more. When Allah gives you that spiritual high, you're just like, okay, how can I do more? One of the two names of Allah that we really should connect to is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Basit and He's al-Qabid, right? Al-Basit is the name of Allah that means the one who expands, the one who gives abundantly. And sometimes when we think about this, we think of it just an external, right? We think of it like, oh, Allah gives us abundantly in terms of risk and in terms of, but no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us abundantly even internally. So I'm sure that many men and then Allah's al-Qabid, right, which comes from the word qabd, which means to like constrict, to hold, to withhold something. And again, that's not just externally, that's also internally, right? So sometimes with your own heart, Allah will be al-Basit and Allah will be al-Qabid. Sometimes Allah's al-Basit with your heart, you're like, wow, my heart is expanded. I feel so close to Allah. You know, we've all had those moments where like we're so close to Allah. We feel that sweetness. We're like, please don't, I just want to be like this forever. I don't care about the dunya. I don't care about anything, you know, like, you know, and then we have those moments where we're like going to pray and our heart is constricted. You know, we're making dua and we didn't feel the same way that we did 2 days ago, right? Or the first 10 days of Ramadan. So how do we respond? This is the thing. It's understanding that's the nature of the path, but the question here is not will it go high or low? No, it will. Just that's it, you know. But it's more about how do I respond? How do I respond when Allah is al-Basit, and how do I respond when Allah is al-Qabid? How do I respond when Allah gives me that spiritual high, and how do I respond when Allah withholds it? Because that's a gift, and that's the thing we don't realize. When you have that high iman and you start Ramadan off strong, that's a gift. That's something Allah gave you. And isn't risk any kind of provision Allah can withhold? Allah can give and take, right? The greatest gift we can have in this world is that connection, that closeness. And so sometimes Allah withholds it. What will you do? So here's the thing, both are opportunities for you, and both are crucial for your Ramadan, and both are important and necessary for your spiritual path. Because number one, when Allah is al-Basit with your heart, right? This is the opportunity. He's giving you this like nafha, he's giving you this like expansion, this energy, this oh, I can do more. I want to do more. I want to keep tasting more of this, right? So that's the time you really like try to increase. Know that that's not something guaranteed, so maximize it. If you have that spiritual high, you know, pray more, make dua more, do good deeds, like use it, maximize it, you know. But when Allah gives you, when Allah is al-Qabid with your heart and you feel that constriction in your heart, there's an amazing opportunity in this. And if you can really understand the amazing opportunity in this, when you hit that slump or that low part in your mid Ramadan or end of Ramadan or whatnot, you're going to look at it differently. You're not going to be like, oh, what does this say about me? I started out great. Now I suck and I'm doing, my Ramadan sucks. No, you're going to be like, I got it, Allah. This is my chance to show up. And I'll tell you why. There's actually a greater opportunity when you hit your spiritual lows, when Allah is al-Qabid with your heart. Because when He was al-Basit with your heart, you got something out of it. You felt good. You got something out of it. Your nafs got something out of it. You felt good. But when He's al-Qabid with your heart and you get up and you pray anyway, and you make dua anyway, and you still do your morning adhkar, and you still show up, you really show that you are worshiping Allah and not the spiritual high. You really show that you are worshiping Allah and not Ramadan. You're worshiping the Lord of Ramadan. You're worshiping the Lord of the spiritual high. You really show your ikhlas. Because if you only walk to Allah with the same tenacity when you have that spiritual high, your nafs got to share. You feel good. So technically you're going back for that spiritual high. But when you get up, and I want you to try this, when you hit those slumps, when you hit those low times, force yourself to get up and pray anyway. But with your heart saying that Allah is my Lord and I'm seeking Allah, not the spiritual high. And you could even talk to Allah and say, Allah, I'm seeking you, I'm seeking you, I'm seeking you. You know, see what Allah gives you. You think Allah is going to let you walk away from that prayer the same. Those are really the moments where your iman goes up. Those are the moments where you're going to take your Ramadan to the next level. So walk towards Allah in all your conditions. Seek Allah, not the spiritual high, not the feeling of iman.
Inshallah, such a beautiful answer. Jazakallah khairan. I think that's very, very important. Ramadan is, like you said, Dr. Marwa, it's a boot camp. It's only the beginning of the journey. Right?
Yeah.
It's just a entrance to that. And that's really a training ground where we can train ourselves. That even outside the month of Ramadan, we don't seek that spiritual high, but we seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khairan. If there's any other questions, please do post your questions in the chat box. I'm watching for questions on Facebook as well as YouTube. Dr. Marwa has a lot of other programs that she has done. Alhamdulillah, she is very active on the Home Institute. I'll put it up here actually, so you can see. She has her own website, as well as she has YouTube channel, as well as her Instagram, where there's all this information. Also, Alhamdulillah, I think Dr. Marwa has another upcoming Ramadan program. So, just Dr. Marwa, do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Yeah. So every year I launch this Ramadan. It's called the Ramadan Revival Retreat, where it's a psycho-spiritual Ramadan program where I take students through 4 weeks of really maximizing the Ramadan and really deriving holistic benefits of Ramadan. And so basically, I only take a limited amount of students because at the Home Institute, I really prioritize smaller spaces where I can really connect with students and students can really, derive the most benefits. So every week in Ramadan, I do a group mentorship group mentorship with all the students. And you start the week, you go through like all the lesson, the exercise that you have to do, the reflection, and then at the end of every week, we do like a group where I check in with each of the students and take questions from them and see like how they're maximizing that week and maximizing their Ramadan, so that at the end they really do derive the most benefit from it. Alhamdulillah, like students who did the program in the past, they've just benefited tremendously, and they a lot of times people have been experiencing Ramadan the same way for so long, and so then like when they go through the program, they pay attention to these other aspects of themselves throughout Ramadan. It becomes such a more nourishing experience.
Hmm. So, Dr. Moro, if like real quickly, so just people get a taste of what the benefit of this.
Mhm.
If you can just shortly, real quickly, one point how a Ramadan can be changed if you're looking through a psychological, spiritual lens of Ramadan, some of your work, just so people can understand, how they can.
Yeah, so it's basically what I was mentioning in the talk today, which was really on the psychological and spiritual view. It's looking at it like this is my time to really empower myself mentally and emotionally, but also spiritually. So I take students through the psychology of Ramadan, and I touched upon points about like why is it that you know what is the psychology of depriving ourselves from food, right? And so one of the examples I gave earlier was that like this is the most basic desire, right? And so if we can really use our mind and use our emotions and interact with ourselves in a way that can allow us to even change our relationship with food and change our relationship with always giving ourselves whatever we want, especially food wise, right? That really builds this internal strength where you're like, okay, you know what, like if I can control myself there, I can really engage in better habits. I can control myself in reacting to my emotions the way that I do, right? Or reacting to my or doing these behaviors the way that I used to do, or things like that, right? You start thinking about, okay, well, this is if I can do that, that's I can really do anything. So it sets the tone for empowerment. But I also take students through this journey of looking at how to utilize our own emotional experiences to access the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in Ramadan, one of the concepts that I teach in the program is that Allah, like I said earlier, like Allah connects you to the truth of who you are. So one of the things that maybe I forgot to mention this was that like in Ramadan, you can't really say oh shaitan, right? Technically, I know there's like some people say there's little shayateen, but let's just like we know that at least the common thing, and see if you can correct me, is that what is that the
Yeah, I think like
at least
yeah,
the big shaitan is locked away, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So still it's there's no easier time to change in that time, right? So in Ramadan you can't just it really causes you to stop and say like, you know, what is it that I'm really feeling here? What is it that I'm really doing here? It's not just okay, I'm praying more and I'm doing more dhikr and I'm doing no, it's an opportunity for inner reflection. So you really start to be truthful with yourself. And I always, tell my students this is that something I learned from my own life too, is that like, we get so upset if someone lies to us, right? Like if you're in a relationship and someone lies to you, you get upset. Doesn't that shake your trust with that person? But how many of us lie to ourselves?
Mhm.
And this is why many of us don't even trust ourselves to change, right? So we think we've lied to ourselves so many times. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this. But guess what? How many tomorrows were you given and you don't do it? You don't even trust yourself anymore that you're gonna tomorrow you're gonna eat healthier, you're gonna pray on time, you're gonna exercise, you're gonna do, you start to like not trust yourself. So Ramadan is like this opportunity to be like, Ya Allah, this is the month I'm gonna get really clear on what I'm doing. I'm gonna get really honest with myself. Because let me tell you something. If you can't be, I look and my, my I specialize in looking at like, for many years, I looked at like the relationship between how we interact with ourselves and how we interact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I look at the psychology of the spiritual experience. And this is really what, motivated the creation of like the Home Institute and the programs that I teach, such as the God in Me program, which is like a more long term of for people to really transform their relationship with Allah and with themselves. And the reason why is because I saw this really powerful relationship, especially as a psychologist and working with people, is that there's if your relationship with yourself is rooted in lying to yourself, if you're not honest with yourself, you think you're going to be honest with Allah. In fact, when people become honest with themselves, they become more honest with Allah. But of course, vice versa, the more you work on your relationship with Allah, the more you realize how important it is to be honest with yourself. All right. And so I don't know, I hope that gives you like a better example, but it's really about just looking at, okay, how do I use my mind? How do I use my emotions? How do I engage in better habits throughout Ramadan here?
No, this is beautiful, and the reason I said that
Mm-hmm.
didn't mean to put you on the spot is just
No,
because our
no, it's
communities
okay.
are not, they're not. Many of us, I can't talk about all communities, but a lot of our communities have just been introduced to the ritualistic aspect of Ramadan, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
tarawih, the
Mm-hmm.
fasting, the zakat, right? Many people, the first series we were
Yeah,
talking about, people, it's not because they have to, but they associate Ramadan to their zakat. So
yeah.
all these different aspects where there's
Mm-hmm.
other really deep concepts, like just what you were talking about,
Yeah.
learning yourself. I took some portions of the God in Me, the course when you were in Arizona, when
Yeah.
you taught there, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
it's like so much profound like knowledge being there. For example, man arafa nafsa arafa rabbah, right? As
Yeah.
many of the scholars
Yeah.
will say, once you understand yourself, you can understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all seeking Allah in the month of Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
It's a continuous struggle that we all go through, but there's other aspects. So I think that's very, very important, and
Yeah.
I urge all you guys, as many as can, and she can accept. I don't know how the numbers she can accept. But whoever's able to take the
Seats
course,
are filling up, so
alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So
sooner than
do,
later.
do invest in something like that. Follow Marwa and the work she's doing, so you can have a different view of Ramadan, right? You're not always doing
Sure.
the same thing. So we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts. Thank you so much again, Dr. Marwa, for coming. I really
Problem.
appreciate your time, and hopefully, inshallah, I really hope in the future, and I've talked to our masjid to host something where we can invite you here personally, so we
Inshallah, I
can
love
benefit
that.
you for a longer time. Inshallah, I know 30,
It's
40
my
minutes.
pleasure. Yeah.
But with that,
Um,
inshallah, if you mind, I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say that I appreciate you asking that question for me to kind of get better examples. 'Cause I do understand, and I think that that's part of the issue is that, for so many people, especially depending on different people's backgrounds and how they were raised and how they understood Ramadan, it's that, it's like, like I've had students say to me, like my whole life, I like fasted and just prayed more, but I didn't look at it beyond that scope, and so like, I think that part of it is, it's not to minimize our ritualistic, but it's to root our ritualistic acts in a deeper connection and a deeper, everything is connected. Nothing, you can't have your spiritual experience over here and your psychological experience over here. They're all connected. And many of us have been just on cruise control without really igniting an emotional connection to what we're doing.
So true, so true. Inshallah, may Allah, open these veils for us, and
Thank you.
hopefully, inshallah, through your work and other, people like
Really.
you, get us closer to reality. With that, inshallah, can I just ask you to end with a dua for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Are you sure you don't want to do it?
Please, please.
You know, I think you're more
No,
suited
no,
to do
please. I
this.
think we've
Okay.
benefited from you, inshallah. So please, jazakallah khair.
Okay. Can I go back and forth between Arabic
Yeah,
and
yeah,
English here? Okay.
yeah, completely fine.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا. اللهم نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل يقربنا إلى حبك. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم بلغنا Ramadan. Ya Allah, allow us to witness this Ramadan. Ya Allah, allow us to witness the entire Ramadan. Ya Allah, help us make this Ramadan the best Ramadan, the most transformative Ramadan, the Ramadan in which we come back to you closer than we've ever come before, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, make this Ramadan a means to your forgiveness of us, Ya Allah. Make this Ramadan a means to greater clarity, to greater truth, to greater empowerment, to greater wellness, to greater productivity. Ya Allah, use us and do not replace us with those who will be more sincere in serving you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, make this Ramadan the Ramadan in which we all become unstuck, in which we all stop living on cruise control. Ya Allah, make this Ramadan the Ramadan in which we awaken to the reality that awaits us, Ya Allah. Make this Ramadan the Ramadan in which we are more connected to the Akhirah and our appointment with you in a way that we have never been connected to before, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, make this the Ramadan in which we prioritize the Akhirah over the Dunya, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, لا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا يا رب. Ya Allah, do not make this world our biggest concern, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, help us walk towards you in all our conditions, with all our imperfections, with all our flaws. Ya Allah, do not let us worship our spiritual high or our iman. Help us seek you, Ya Allah. Help us seek you. Help us worship you, not Ramadan, not the people, not our desires, not our emotions. Help us walk towards you and seek you in all our conditions, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, I ask you to please grant us all Jannah, Ya Rab, Jannat al-Firdaus, and unite us with your beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya Sayyidina Muhammad wa sallam.
Jazakallah khair and beautiful dua. May Allah accept. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Marwa, once again for coming and giving
No
your
problem.
time.
Thank you all.
And please do go to her Facebook. She also has a Facebook page, and the Home Institute. Check it out, as well as our own Facebook pages. We're living in a time of social media and everything, so we have our own NWSCC Facebook as well as YouTube, and my personal Instagram where I do Q&As, and I try to share stuff that's beneficial. So we ask Allah to accept. Until next time, until tomorrow, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.